And if you'll now stand for the reading of the gospel. Today's reading is from the book of Matthew, chapter 10, verses 24 to 39. A disciple is not above the teacher, nor a slave above the master. It is enough for the disciple to be like the teacher, and the slave like the master. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more will they malign those of his household? So have no fear of them, for nothing is covered up that will not be uncovered, and nothing secret that will not become known. What I say to you in the dark, tell in the light, and what you hear whispered, proclaim from the housetops. Do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father. And even the hairs of your head are all counted. So do not be afraid. You are of more value than many sparrows. Everyone, therefore, who acknowledges me before others, I also will acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever denies me before others, I also will deny before my Father in heaven. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And one's foes will be members of one's own household. Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever does not take up the cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Those who find their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. So I'm going to talk about the first reading we heard from the book of Genesis, the story of Hagar and Ishmael being cast out. This is a story that is usually glossed over while we focus on God's promise being fulfilled through Isaac. Unfortunately, a significant opportunity for spiritual growth is missed by ignoring this painful part of the story. God promised Abraham that he would be a father of many nations, and that promise is to be fulfilled through his son Isaac, the miracle son, the pride and joy of Sarah and Abraham. But let us rewind the clock a little before the birth of Isaac, when the words of God's promise still hung in the air and were cherished greatly in the hearts of the soon-to-be parents. I like to talk about Abraham because he's an incredible model of faith for us even today. Jews, Christians, and Muslims all claim Abraham as their patriarch, and so he is indeed the father of many nations. But even this patriarch of patriarchs had some flaws and made some questionable decisions. He was, after all, human, just like you and me. This humanity which we share can help us relate more to this ancient man who may sometimes seem to be more carved from stone than made of flesh and blood. Today, we will examine just one of those questionable moments in the Abrahamic saga, for there are quite a few if you take time to read the story closely. A couple of weeks ago, we read about the call of Abram in Genesis chapter 12. Abram was living in a foreign land, and God told him to move his household to Canaan, promising him many offspring that would become a great nation. With remarkable faith, Abram responded to God's call, and at that time he was 75 years old. After about 10 years, his wife Sarai begins to doubt God's ability to fulfill his promise of numerous offspring. Or maybe she thinks God had just forgotten about them. In any case, she decided to take matters into her own hands to help God out and ensure the dynasty. She gives her servant Hagar to Abram with the purpose of conceiving a son. Imagine you're Hagar, and your mistress says she would like you to become like a wife to her husband. You might think, this is a little outside of the job description, But okay, since I need this job to survive in this desert place where I have no family or friends, I guess I have no choice but to comply. Maybe Sarai thought Hagar wouldn't conceive, or maybe she thought she would give birth to a daughter, or maybe she didn't think this plan all the way through. But we know for certain she did not believe she would ever bear any children for Abram, despite God's promise. The promise she had cherished so long in her heart had withered and died, and her faith had died with it. Once Hagar had her son Ishmael, I'm sure she was very happy, and now as a concubine of a wealthy man, she enjoyed a relatively easy life, except when it came to dealing with Sarah's envy. So why is Sarah envious? The whole thing was her idea, and it's all going according to plan. She's envious because she's human. She wanted to be the one with whom Abraham started this destiny that would fulfill the promise of God. Who in her situation would be able to resist those envious voices in her head? Even after she's blessed with a son at the age of 99, she still couldn't help feeling like she was in second place, like her son Isaac was in danger of losing his inheritance to Ishmael. And so envy seems to be the main problem. Sarah is envious of Hagar's son Ishmael. He's enjoying the place of the firstborn son. Hagar is enjoying the prestige that comes as being the mother of the firstborn son. Sarah wants her son to be Abraham's firstborn, his only heir. God's promise that his covenant will be with Isaac is not enough. She wants more. She wants it all. She wants what Hagar has. Do you ever feel that way? You've been blessed by God, but it's not enough. It's never enough. You want more. Whatever blessing your neighbor has that isn't yours, that's what you want. Envy ruins your enjoyment of your own wonderful, unique life, the life that God has granted you, and only you. One spiritual discipline that may help you take control of the envy in your life is simplicity. I don't know about you, but I have way too much stuff. I spent Thursday morning on a project I've been putting off for years, cleaning my garage shop. I mean, I didn't clean the whole thing, but just a corner. And that's the corner where my daughter Catherine had piled all the stuff she didn't want from her room when she cleaned it out about 5 or 6 years ago. So I have a hard time throwing things away. I have the habit of saving things just in case I might need them one day in the future. Have you seen the show Hoarders? No, I don't think I'm a hoarder, but I can understand the way some of those people feel about their things. My stuff is important to me. Don't just throw it away. Somehow it's tied up with my identity. I was ruthless on Thursday. I designated about 80% of that stuff as trash, and I felt a pretty good sense of accomplishment. I mean, it was just sitting there taking up space. I wasn't even using it. I hadn't even looked at it in years. And now I have more room and the possibilities are endless, and I'm ready to tackle the next corner. This is what simplicity will do for you. Help you to focus on what's important in life. By getting rid of things that are no longer meaningful to you, you'll make room for things that are meaningful. You'll make room for new things. You'll free up space in your home, in your mind, in your life for more important things. Because simplicity is not just about things, but about how you spend your time and energy. Orienting your life with God at the highest priority and having eyes only for serving the kingdom is the absolute goal. But as we take small steps on this journey of faith, one thing simplicity will teach you is where your priorities lie at this moment in time, and you'll become aware of just how much farther you have to go. Because if Sarah had set as serving God as her highest priority, instead of ensuring her son's status as Abraham's heir, our world might look different today. Hagar and Ishmael would not have been cast out. Instead, Isaac and Ishmael would have been co-heirs. Maybe there wouldn't be the rivalry there is today between the Muslims and the Jews and the Christians. Maybe there wouldn't even be Muslims and Jews and Christians as distinct religions, but all would worship the God all together. Maybe our world would be a little more peaceful. It's impossible to know what would have happened, but Sarah's envy has echoed down through the generations. One question to ask yourself is how much of your identity is tied up with what you own? In our culture, we're bombarded by messages of consumerism. Buy this new thing and you'll become a new person. Our possessions tend to define us. People judge you based on the clothes you wear and the car you drive. And it's easy to fall into that trap of thinking that way because it's so prevalent in our culture. But your things don't define you. These earthly things are fleeting and perishable. They wear out and break down and lose value and eventually become meaningless to our lives, as I found out when I cleaned the garage this week. The only way to become a new person is to become a disciple of Christ and let Christ transform you. You are a special creation of God, endowed with the Spirit of God and put on this earth to enjoy the bounty of creation and to transform the world by sharing God's love with others. Your value comes from being a beloved child of God, not from any of your possessions. Your identity comes into fullness as you accept your role as a disciple of Christ and a minister in love to all the people of the world. The things you own should not define you, but be used as tools to fulfill your mission. You will notice that God does not treat Hagar and Ishmael with contempt even as they are cast out. They are not just extras in the story of Isaac. They are valuable and important. They are also children of God, and their welfare matters. Their lives matter. God has made a promise to also make Ishmael a great nation. God has a plan for their lives too. Why did they need to be separated from Abraham at this time? What purpose did this serve in God's plan? It's impossible for us to know these things and why they happened to Hagar and Ishmael, why they were sent forth into the desert to make their own way apart from Abraham. With our human understanding, it seems unnecessarily cruel. It's possible that it was necessary for the development of their character. It's possible that this is the only way that God's plan would work through this separation. We will never know, but we can learn several lessons from our contemplation of this event. First of all, we have seen that God values all human beings even if they are not the primary focus of the biblical story, which means for me that all people, even those of different religions, are worthy of respect and have a place in God's plan. All people are children of God, and God loves them and intends good for all people. Secondly, we have seen the damage that envy wreaks on relationships and how it interferes with your enjoyment of life. Learning to be content with what you have and who you are is achieved through having faith in God's love and unique calling for you. Knowing that you are a beloved child of God with a unique purpose is all you need to find contentment in this life. You don't need to be the firstborn son because all God's children will inherit a share of the kingdom and all are equally loved. Another lesson would be the importance of letting go. Sarah had cherished expectations of being the only one to provide children to fulfill the promise. The reality of life did not quite match up to her expectations. But instead of embracing the messy reality, she held on to her expectations. We do that. We refuse to let go of our outdated expectations. I had trouble letting go of my unused stuff. But sometimes it's not useful to hold on to it anymore. Sometimes it's better to just let it go. It was time to let go of my stuff. Keeping Catherine's stuff in my garage was not bringing me any closer to her. It's a new season in our relationship. It was time for her to leave and go to college and get married. And it's time for me to let her go. It's time for me to let go of her stuff because it's only stuff. Our relationship is intangible. It's not made up of stuff. It's made up of all the memories and feelings we have from the years of being together. And we will continue to build on this in the future. It was time for Hagar to leave, and it was time for Abraham to let her go. This was God's timing, and it's not really anything we can understand, but we know that God went with Hagar and Ishmael and made sure they survived because he had great plans for them. That is what God does for us too. When you find yourself wandering in the desert, you can be sure that God is there, making sure you survive, because God has great plans for you too. O God of the prosperous and God of the deserted ones, we know that you love each one you created. Let us feel secure in the unique position you have granted us. Let us see how perfect it is for our purpose in life. Give us the humility to accept that there will always be those who have more and whose position in society is greater than our own. Help us to cleanse our souls of envy. Help us to see the damage it inflicts on our souls and tarnishes our contentment. Let us fix our gaze on your face, where nothing else matters, so that we might feel the significance you have granted us, and that it might fill our souls with joy and light, so that we no longer need any earthly possession, but only to feel the outpouring of your love and know it is enough. Amen.